Hello again, I'm Jim Raymond with the State Recovery Task Force with the Colorado Emergency Operations Center. In Colorado, the State Recovery Task Force is a combination of state departments and agencies that come together after a disaster to move recovery information forward and try to provide efficient recovery after a disaster. That's why I'm here with Commissioner Kate Greenburg with the Colorado Department of Agriculture. I think you'll be very interested to learn more about how progressive the Colorado Department of Agriculture is in support of agriculture in Colorado. I've learned that Colorado contributes approximately $47 billion to the Colorado economy each year, or it did in 2019. That's very significant, and it's also a very important part of our Colorado heritage. So with that regard, recovery is a major element every time we have a natural disaster, whether it's a wildland fire or a flood, or in this case, COVID-19. We include agriculture in the conversation because it's such an important industry to the state and such an important social network across all of Colorado. Commissioner Greenburg, welcome, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Just to help us get started a little bit, could you give us a little bit of information on what the Colorado Department of Agriculture does and how they help Coloradans?
So the Colorado Department of Agriculture, we do quite a lot of things, and a lot of things that impact all of our lives, whether or not you know it. So we've got 8 divisions at the department, everything from our animal health division that has our state veterinarian, and which we'll talk about later because that's the hub of our emergency response, all the way through our marketing program where we help advance Colorado agriculture. That's the first part of our mission, is to advance Colorado ag. So we help market products both here locally. You'll see our Colorado Proud brand all around the state. We also do a lot of international marketing to support our producers and food and ag businesses. So our 8 divisions really, they serve a broad array of services. Of course, we're a regulatory agency. For example, we tear all the scales in the state of Colorado. So if you go to the grocery store and when you're checking out, you see on the side of the scale a little, our old logo, but a Department of Agriculture logo. That's us. That's our inspection team going out and making sure that folks are getting what they're paying for. So a lot of things that we do. We work on food safety, protecting food safety from eggs to produce, and there on out from there. We inspect custom exempt meat facilities. So a lot of if you're out there and you eat meat and you buy directly from a rancher, that meat will go through a custom exempt facility and our inspectors inspect it. We've also, of course, got the Colorado State Fair under us, which has been in existence longer than statehood. And that's also true of our other division, our brands division, where all of our brand inspectors are housed. That's another core area for response and recovery, which I'd like to talk about a bit later. But we've got, I think, around 62 brand inspectors, almost 1 per county, who are out there working directly with landowners. Again, that's an agency or a division that's been around longer than the agency has been around. A long, of course, history of livestock production and ranching in Colorado that lives on, and our brand inspection team help make that happen. A few other to mention, we've got our, our plants division. A lot of work we do on plant regulation. Hemp is a big one for us now. And our conservation division, another one that touches a lot of the local governments, noxious weed control, water quality stewardship. We're building a soil health initiative. I'm really looking to build our stewardship through agriculture across the state.
You'd certainly do a lot in the Department of Agriculture. Let's talk a little bit about disaster response and how that relates to recovery after a disaster. I know the Department of Agriculture is very involved with animal health, of course, but there's also an ag liaison program, and you mentioned food security. I want to get to that in a little bit also, because you're definitely an important part of keeping that farm to market supply chain secure, or help with that. So in terms of disaster response, what are some of the things that emergency managers should know in Colorado?
Well, for starters, the most technical role we play is through ESF 11. So we're Emergency Support Function 11 at the State Emergency Operations Center. So when we're activated, we are the lead agency on emergencies that are related to livestock in particular. So livestock disease is a great example of where we would be a lead agency. Our state veterinarian oversees livestock and other animal disease outbreaks every year. We've actually got we've got one in Colorado right now, rabbit hemorrhagic disease. Vesicular stomatitis virus is in neighboring states. we had an outbreak last year. That's not necessarily ESF 11 activated, but we are always sort of responding to emergencies and in the animal health sector. Since COVID-19 started, we've really kicked up our response and integration with the Emergency Operations Center at the state level. We now have a liaison with ESF 6, which is the feeding emergency response team. So we are plugged into the food access side. This is somewhat of a new element for us. COVID-19, of course, has just exposed all sorts of vulnerabilities that we are working to not just patch up in the near term, but to really mend in the long term. And part of this is making sure folks who are hungry get fed. So that's a supporting role we play. But really with disaster response, Durango is my home base. And my house down there is about 7 or 8 miles from the southern end of the 416 fire back in 2018. Was it 2018?
Yeah, it was.
Great. And, that was before I was with the department, and just as a citizen watching what happened, same with Gold King Mine, right? The Department of Ag isn't necessarily we don't necessarily always have a formal function, but we are an excellent liaison. You mentioned our Ag Liaisons program. We've got brand inspectors who know the range better than most, except for the ranchers who run the range, right? So when you're looking at a forest fire scenario, our brand inspectors are able to tell you what roads you can use, how to move livestock around, what private landowners need to be thinking of or preparing for. We're a great agency and resource for that local knowledge. And we also want to help wherever we can, So if that means we need to help get trailers to a location to remove animals from that site, then we want to be able to respond in that way. So again, really thinking about us as a local knowledge base with folks with great technical skills who are sort of bred to respond, I would say, for a lot of our team, especially out in the field. And then also our ESF 11 formal role, responding to livestock disease and other hazards and events, and making sure we are, doing our best to stem those events and those disasters, and then think about, long-term recovery, of course, be part of that recovery, and support our producers and the state in moving through those events.
Let's talk about something else too. During disasters and immediately thereafter, a lot of times there's some behavioral health issues, and the agriculture community is definitely not immune from those. And in some cases, it's really hard to identify where help is needed. I know the Department of Agriculture has been really supportive of the crisis hotline. Could you tell me a little about that?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And actually, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we've been pushing, not just this month, but actually for years, to make sure that farmers and ranchers and folks across rural Colorado know that there's a confidential hotline run by the state that is available to our folks out in the field, and B, that we've got your back, that if you're struggling, if you're going through tough times, that there's no need to go at it alone. With ag, just like with a lot of communities, emergency response is another great example. You bear a lot of burden, you see a lot of things that are tough, and there's a culture of just pushing through, and I respect that culture. I come from that culture. My uncle used to ranch down in Bayfield, and it feels very familiar to be around friends and family who just charge through, but it doesn't always have the best outcomes for our communities or our families or ourselves. So what we've done for many years, before my time even at the department, is a partnership with the Colorado Crisis Hotline through Colorado Crisis Services. And so we direct folks who are struggling to a confidential hotline. The page is on our website. We've got a landing page with the call number and text number that folks can go to. And for anybody listening now, we also are going to have, actually they'll be available now, new resources, posters, business cards, tangible things you can actually put out in real life or virtually now, since so much is virtual, to help distribute that information throughout your local community. So it's something we want to get out all across all corners of the state and make sure we've got support for our people who are facing tough times.
Well, I want to thank you. I know that you're active every time we have a disaster in the State Emergency Operations Center. As you mentioned, ESF 11 is there. And in addition, the Department of Agriculture is a very important part of the State Recovery Task Force. And we always have a representative who is working with us to try to help not only to help communities all across the state whenever there's a disaster, provide some efficient and rapid recovery solutions. On the 416 fire, I worked a lot with the brand inspectors to help move some of these issues and create some relief for the ranchers that were evacuated in that area. Can you give, we'll display some of the information that you've provided on the screen as we move along, but is there any additional information that you'd like to get to the emergency managers in Colorado? Where's a good place for them to start if they were in rural Colorado? Where's a place that they can find out more information about CDA or get more information if they need help in some area of agriculture?
Yeah, we want to make it as easy as possible to reach us. So number of ways. Our website's a great one. I'd say sign up for our newsletter. A lot of great updates come through that we send monthly. We're on social, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So those are fun places, but we also post, important updates there as well. And then, of course, through a lot of different channels directly. Myself, you can, we've all got the state email address. So I'm just kate.greenburg, GREENBERG at state.co.us. Email's a bit of a black box. I think a lot of people can resonate with that, but that is one good way to reach us. Of course, we've got all of our phone numbers and emails for key programmatic staff listed on our website as well. So if you're looking for something specific, please do go to the website and see if you can find the right person. But you mentioned something too, Jim, about the recovery task force, and I just wanted to make a final point on that. That COVID-19 has, of course, as I mentioned, kind of spurred us to really grow our response and recovery muscle at the Department of Ag. We've got folks plugged in at the EOC in much more integrated ways than before. And a lot of what we're doing is, of course, planning for recovery already. And we really think that this is a moment to set agriculture up to take advantage of the future, to be ready for the future, to be really building more resilience into our food and ag system across the state. And I think a lot of that is partnerships, is thinking, locally, and really thinking about, we're going to have more disasters down the road, right? It's just sort of a nature of living on planet Earth. And we've got creative, hardworking, committed folks out in the field, and that's true of a lot of people listening right now. And I think the more that we kind of build synergy and mutual understanding and collaboration, the more our long-term recovery through this COVID disaster, but really through any future disaster or event, is just going to make us stronger in the long haul.
Well, Commissioner, I really want to thank you for your time today. It was really a pleasure to talk to you. I learned something every time I talk to somebody from the Department of Agriculture and how important they are to Colorado. I know we both wanted to give a special acknowledgement to the agricultural workers, the emergency managers, and all the essential employees that have really kept Colorado moving, especially in the area of agriculture. So thanks again for your time, and I really appreciate talking to you today.
Great, thanks so much.
All right, be safe and be well.